Today's guest is Madi Murphy, who is the co-founder of Cosmic X, a moon-powered community helping millions of people learn the art of birth chart interpretation and developing digestible doses of cosmic know-how directly to your phone and email inbox. She is the author of her book, In the Cosmic Zone, which helps you rekindle the connection, guiding you back to the cosmos, to the truth that you've always belonged to, amongst the stars. So let's welcome today's guest, Madi Murphy. Welcome.
Oh, Adam, thank you so much for having me. It's a privilege, an honor, and a treat.
Okay, that sounds like a trine, so to speak, right? In in astrology. It's interesting because, through my life, for example, I'm very interested in the mystical aspects of what takes place and the underlying currents
Mm,
that help us find our path, other than the scene. And so I know I've always used astrology in the level of my understanding as a navigation tool, as a way of trying to see what's going to happen, why this happens, what takes
hmm
place in the future. And I know many people do. I mean, I remember as a child in the newspapers, the closest thing you had to your astrology, other than having the internet now, was looking in the back of the Daily News or the New York Post. Or if my mother had
hmm
Star Magazine, not Star, yeah, maybe Star
hmm
Magazine, there was a section called Astrology, and I people used to say, "Oh, do you see what it says about you? Do you see what it says about you?" And I found it interesting that I guess that's the beginning aspects for us
hmm
of understanding that
Yeah,
something could exist. So, like, give me a little bit of a feedback of
yeah.
where you came up with your interest and how you navigated and found this passion of yours.
I love that. Thank you. And yeah, I so resonate with that. And I think a lot about my journey of falling in love with astrology. It wasn't just like a one time, it's like how the planets are circular. I feel like there's such a reminder that our journeys are really circular and we might come back to something many times and meet it and see it in a different lens with a different appreciation, or for me, like a different level of falling in love. So I have fallen in love with astrology many times over again in this lifetime. And the first thing was, like you, when I was young, I was just curious about how planetary energy could affect us. Um, there was a new age bookstore in my town that I would sneak into because my mom didn't really want me to go into it. But there would be, I'm sorry, there's still some sirens going by if you could hear that. But I remember reading about myself in the book and being like, wow, that's really interesting. That really is me. And it felt really cool to be seen in that way. Similarly, I had a fantastic, magnificent, elegant aunt, and she was into numerology and tarot and astrology. And she would just sprinkle little tidbits in. And I thought it was so mystical and so expansive. And I naturally, as a child, felt just so, I felt everything so deeply. I felt waves of energy and a connection to things that I had no language for. So astrology was one of those first things, those first tools that almost provided like a lifeline,
Yeah.
a language, right? To understand, oh, what are some of, oh, I do feel a lot. I do, that is affirming something that I'm feeling intuitively. But it wasn't until, like a lot of things that we enjoy as children, or maybe it's just me, but I kind of felt called to cast that aside a little bit as, born and raised New Yorker, entering college, entering the work field. You kind of like, okay, time to get serious now and be taken seriously. And I entered publishing and working in different, high rise, big skyscraper buildings in New York City. And I felt like I had to just kind of fit in, even though I always felt like I absolutely did not.
Yeah.
And so, I had my kind of dark night of the soul breakdown, realizing that everything in my life was just built on some sort of inauthenticity, right? Hiding myself. It all kind of came crashing down 2 weeks before I was set to be married. I just couldn't go through with it. It felt so wrong. My whole body shut down. And I called off that wedding, which was the hardest choice of my life up to that
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
but it also liberated me. And then I came back. I came back. I was so desperate, quote unquote, that I was like, fine, I'll go back to all that weird stuff I was into as a child. And I'll go back to, the mystical study. I don't even care what anyone thinks of me because I'm just so desperate to understand truth and who I am. And then, of course, I later found out that I ended up calling off that wedding 2 weeks exactly to the day before my Saturn return. So that was very affirming for me because that is a time of life where you do decide, like, who am I going to be, right? It's an astrological rite of passage to your most authentic self. And then just in the journeys of every time in life that I was at a crossroads and I doubted myself and my intuition, I felt a calling to go somewhere higher, to leave my comfort zone for my cosmic zone. It was always astrology that came back in with a moment of like when I was leaving I had a cold pressed juice business and a coffee shop in Brooklyn and they were really successful, but I felt a calling to do something different to help people on a spiritual level. But my mind was overthinking it. My mind was saying, what is that? That's not even a real career path. And then, bam, in my chart was just the validation that my career part of my chart is to be a mystic, is to
Yeah.
help people, guide people, to be a metaphysician. So, like, I could, go on like 100 more stories like that. Every moment that I've had of doubting myself, astrology has helped me realize like a planetary permission slip. Like, you don't have to doubt your gifts. You're just here to do them. And here it is in black and white, right? That affirmation, that alignment. So that's a little bit of, my little brief snippet of the many reasons why I owe my whole life and where I'm at now to the astro logos, wisdom of the stars.
Yeah. It's so interesting because, many people I interview talk about their dark night of the soul. And many people look at it, or maybe if they're not familiar with it, it's that not that dark place, that confronting the aspects of ourselves that we've basically hidden or pushed aside, going back, and some type of major, conflict or crisis takes place for us to, reassess our lives. So many people are born in a religious home where many of the either
Yes.
paranormal or esoteric types of modalities are pushed aside. People are fearful of either rocking the boat or, you know,
Yep.
bringing to the forefront the things that they believe in, but other people would shame them for or scapegoat them for. Uh, in,
That
into,
was that was me. That was that. I grew up interesting in a household where my dad was more of a philosopher, but he grew up as a Catholic altar boy, so he did like religion, but he was questioning things. But we grew up in a church, a very interesting kind of alternative church, but it was like all of this, was like not okay to dabble in.
right,
And
right.
so it had a kind of a shameful, my curiosity and being drawn to it was definitely covered in a lot of shame, hiding this part of myself. But I also, probably like a lot of people feel, had such an intuitive soul connection to it all that I was like, how can this be so bad? And that was a lot of my deconstructing in my late 20s, early 30s around like just looking at, questioning
Yeah.
everything, right? Who said that? Who benefits from that? Why? Where did this come from? Why is this, So,
Yeah, one of the interesting things of you mentioned a little bit also before was your Saturn return. That's
hmm.
basically every 28 to 30 years or so for a person. Is that how it works?
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it depends a little bit on your age, but usually the exact
Yeah.
is around 28, 29. You start to feel it maybe at 27. And yeah, it can feel like a crisis if you don't understand the tools, but it's really an invitation.
Yeah, well, I maybe we'll touch upon that because I'm in that age bracket and I'm feeling my second Saturn return strongly, and actually going through
Yes.
the things you mentioned. And I just wanted to touch upon the fact that, we sometimes we feel that things are in our hands. We control our destiny, and in some capacity we do. But many of
Yeah.
the information, as you're touching upon, is that we're also directed and influenced by the planets.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's interesting because some people, I talk to all kinds of people who are deep in astrological studies, and I talk to people who are skeptical, and I talk to some people who are just downright haters of it. But I'm never here to convince anyone. That's not my job. My job is not to proselytize or preach about astrology, but I do like to share insight, right? That to me, it's not that people say, well, what the planets are making me do something. And I'm like, no, but there is a connection as above, so below, as within, as without. Just like the moon affects the tides, there's a planetary energy and it's more like weather, right? And it's like the weather is going to happen whether you pay attention, whether you read and check the weather or not.
Right.
It's going to be 96 degrees. It's going to be rainy. Today is kind of cold and windy in New York. There's going to be a snowstorm. And just by understanding and having a more conscious awareness of how to work with the weather, you can live in more alignment and ease and maybe even, purposefulness. Like if I want to go skiing, I'll check for the weather when it's snowing, and
Right.
then I will wear the appropriate attire and I will get ready, right? I will put snow chains on my tires. I will do all this versus showing up in a bikini, showing up, like
Yeah.
it's like, okay, there's nothing wrong with snow, there's nothing wrong with heat, but it's like when we're not prepared is when we can feel blindsided, attacked, victimized by the universe. And we understand I've had myself and my clients go through some of the hardest things in life, but just having the awareness of what's happening, first of all, can help you externalize it so you don't internalize it, right? Because for me, my first thought was, that's it. I've messed up my life, or that's
Wow.
it. Everything always goes wrong for me. We're understanding, oh no, this is just a season. It's temporary. And like anything, I believe there's an opportunity for growth at a soul level, but you have to understand me, put into context what's happening. You can look back on other phases and cycles, what happened last time, what are some tools, and you could take this all, to yourself. You could take it to your therapist, you could take it to your healers, you could take it to yourself of like creating homework for yourself around it. And then we get to move through it with empowered action, right?
Yeah.
Just versus just feeling like
Right.
I'm
Right.
just a
Right.
victim of this
Lost.
astrological weather.
Yeah.
Lost, confused, overwhelmed. I've felt all those things. I know what it feels like on that other side. And I can't articulate enough how empowering it is to understand, right? The why that something's happening and that you can realize, oh, this might actually be happening for me instead of just to me.
Yeah. But many times we look at it in victim mindset, but what it's really doing is, I guess, trying to make us the best version of ourselves. But sometimes,
Absolutely.
so when we use the planets as that map to help us find the best way we can go, I guess that would be a way of
Yes.
looking at it. Like you mentioned the moon before. You said the moon. I mean, I know, for example, the full moon definitely affects me. I feel more nervous, more anxious, and so on. And I know other people do as well. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So as you look at Saturn return itself, or
Yeah.
our charts, there's a lot of, I can, again, I'm mentioning myself, as an example, I definitely feel the ebbs and flows of the current cycle, and then going through a period and where,
Absolutely.
yeah, I could say to myself, oh, it's this or it's that, but no, it's my own energy being affected by the waves of the planetary movements that are coming upon me now. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's just helpful to, in my opinion at least, it always helps us, when we externalize something, we can communicate it, we can articulate it better to ourselves. We can understand the roadmap forward a little bit, right? Versus just feeling like I'm getting hit. Yeah, I use weather as a metaphor, but I also use a lot of times I use surfing as a metaphor. And it's because I do spend a lot of my time out on the east end of Long Island in Montauk, a surfing town. And whenever I watch surfers, I'm like, yeah, that really feels to me how it feels to live in alignment with the universe, with the cosmos. Because, when a big wave of energy is coming, you're in your Saturn return. For you, I'm very impressed that you said you're feeling the full moon energy because actually, next week is a big full moon. It's a super moon. It has a lot of potency behind it, but it is also your actual full moon, your one full moon of the year. So you're feeling that even more potently. And so, like this surfing analogy, again, we could not pay attention to it, and it might just feel like you're getting hit with waves, getting caught in a riptide, getting caught in a current of energy. where it's like, I'm trying to swim and the waves are crashing. Whereas when you work with astrology or with someone like myself, who I call myself a cosmic consultant, I can guide you like, okay, Adam, you have a big wave coming. Let's get ready, right? Let's turtle duck dive through the wave. Let's get the wetsuit on. Let's wax up the board and let's just hang out. And I'm going to tell you, this wave is coming. So here's your assignment. Here's the themes. Here's the tools. And when I tell you to go, I just want you to start paddling. And then you get to work with that energy, right? Like that big momentum
Right.
gets to lift you up and your board. And anyone who's ever surfed or any kind of, harnessing nature, sailing, skiing, it's like, oh, there's my intention mixed with action, mixed with a universal energy of nature. And I am now flying, right? I am in flow.
Right.
And that is what's so cool. Like for you, this big full moon coming up, we could talk about it, more deeply, but for you, it actually is a lot about something coming to big culmination from the past 6 months in your career part of your chart around security, stability. But it actually, there's like cycles within cycles, and there's so many patterns in astrology. It's actually also a culmination of something that might have started in 2018. So, like, for you to know that and reflect on that might help you have a higher ability, higher capacity to digest all of this energy and
Right.
then use it for something, right? Like instead of just feeling like, whoa, this energy is a lot. Oh, if I can articulate it, if I can digest it, then I can metabolize it and do
Right.
something with it, right?
Yeah, that's it's pretty apropos in terms for myself because I'm writing a book now. Been in the process of writing a book,
Mm,
and other travels for my work that are coming up. I'm be in Europe next week on the full moon,
mm.
and yeah, it's
Wow. Okay.
we speak about the moon as a planet that most people are familiar with, or the sun, that the sun where the
Yes.
sun was when we were born. That's our right, our birth date.
Yes.
But there's inner planets and outer planets. Maybe you could just touch briefly upon what they do and what their effect is on our.
Oh, I love this. I love this. And yeah, like the sun and the moon are such good entry points. They're kind of like cosmic gateway drugs to understanding, like, because we can see them, right? Like we see the sun, we understand. We also see what the sun does, right? The sun energizes us, it gives us life, it warms us. That's actually what the sun in our chart, what it does for us. We're meant to learn, hey, if we can really live in my sun sign, and your sun is in Leo, which is sun on sun energy, when I can learn to be in my sun sign, I can tap into more vitality, more radiance, and I can literally expand my capacity for holding and sharing my light here on earth. Your moon sign, just like what does the moon do? The moon reminds us that we are connected to the cosmos. I don't care who you are, if you're the most not into astrology, not woo woo, normcore, muggle of a human. I have been in every situation on the planet you wouldn't expect and heard someone say, look at the moon. Wow. Right. Like I've been at football games, I've been at business conferences, I've been places and people say, wow. And there's something about looking out the window. The moon reminds us, right, that there's a part of us that we don't always see or feel in the outside world, but that we're deeply connected. Our intuitive self, our inner child self, our emotional self is really connected to our inner moon sign. And then in terms of personal planets, we have Mercury. So that's our planet. That's like our communication station. That's like our command control center for how we process, take in, digest, and share information. And this is so important because we know communication is lubrication, as they say. And if we don't understand how we're taking in the world and how we're communicating, it is very hard to have meaningful relationships,
Yeah.
meaningful work, to feel right, seen, heard, expressed. So like for you, your Mercury is in Leo. And so, there is a Leonine energy, the Leo archetype, to how you want to express yourself, right? With passion, um, with maybe a little flair for artistry, theatrics, big, heart centered. Leo is very connected and ruled by the heart, right? So everything you do, your heart has to be in it, right? And like, and I love that you're working on a book. I want to hear more about that. But you have also like a lot of need for creativity. And in my book, I break down what each of these zodiac signs mean beyond just the memes, the horoscopes. And in my book, I talk about Leo energy is I need to be seen.
Yeah.
So a lot of your chart, you have a lot of this Leo energy and it connects to everything. Playfulness, it connects to the sacred need to be witnessed. It connects to the need to have a life that is filled with like joy and wonder. So for you in your communications, like this is very important, right? Like your
Yes.
literal planet of communication is in the sign of I need to be seen. So you will probably come up against things often in your life that are going to kind of continue to challenge you, to invite you right into that next level of like out of the comfort zone because we didn't come here to stay stagnant. We didn't come
Right. Right.
here to be static. That's what my whole book is about. I had to go through this very process that I write about in my book to write my book and
Yeah.
to promote my book because you don't just arrive in your cosmic zone one time. If you're here to be really in tune and intuitive and really authentic, you're going to kind of keep coming up against that. And then similarly, we have your Venus sign, which is what you value. It's very much what you need to open up and feel safe in love, in relationships. It's what makes life also feel beautiful and romantic and kind of like worth living. Without Venus, life gets very black and white, very drab, very dull. And in my book, in the back, I have a glossary of a tool of how to break this down in really easy to understand terms, and that you can write your key for each of your signs. So for your Venus sign, it's also I need to be seen. So you
Yeah.
have a lover's heart, you love love, but it's like can I call in and find people and projects that match that heart frequency,
Absolutely.
that feel really passionate, very compassionate, and you're here to like kind of be a little over the top when it comes to love and what you're passionate about. And this is also connects us in Venus to our magnetism, how we call in money too. So Venus is always a really fun planet to work with for people. And then in terms of your personal planets, there's two more interesting ones to discuss, and kind of going hand in hand with Venus. If Venus is like how you open up, like almost like a flower of, calling energy in and feeling magnetic and feeling that beauty of life, your Mars is like maybe the bumblebee or the inner warrior. Your Mars is how you tap into action, to go, get up and go energy. Like what makes you excited to go out there and kind of take on life and the day, what makes you feel excited. And I work with this a lot from with people who are not tapping into like a lot of procrastination, a lot of analysis paralysis, a lot of feelings of like low energy. Our Mars sign can really teach us a lot about how to almost hack that part of us so we can tap into ambition, desire, drive, right? And how we can have a healthy, good energy, not high spikes and low drops. And so your Mars is in Libra. And the Libra key is all about we can create harmony. And it really is about like reciprocity and the artist and the muse and balance in relationships and justice and peace. And so you have a lot in your chart that is a lot about like having an artist heart and artistry to life and to things you do. But understanding that like what's really going to motivate you is bringing more beauty and harmony to your life, to the world around you. Relationships are really going to fuel you, and maybe even partnering with people when you maybe were feeling, oh, I'm feeling a little low energy or uninspired. Kind of collaborating is really
Right.
good for you. And a lot of what your chart speaks of is even, what you do here with your amazing podcast is so beautifully reflected. And then the last in the personal category, it's less of a planet, it's a placement, it's an angle, but it is really important in understanding yourself. And you do need your birth time to get this. And this is your rising sign, which is also known as your ascendant. And so people might hear astrologers or, cosmically curious people talk about what's your big three? What's your big three? And your big three is your sun and your moon, as I mentioned before, but it's also your rising. And your rising is like if you were looking at a clock of your birth chart, it's where like the nine would be. And it's the start of your chart. And it quite literally is what helps you rise in this lifetime. It's like what is the energy that is guiding you, motivating you, the bigger things in life. And it's also the aura, your aura you give off. How do people think of you?
Right.
How do people perceive you? How do how are new people, projects, opportunities going to find you? And when we understand that, we can again move through life with so much more flow and ease. And you're a Leo rising, so you have a lot of Leo in your chart. So
I
a
know.
Leo rising is like that is just you are your chart. If I didn't know you, I didn't know anything about you, I would just say, wow, this is a man, this is a human who leads with his heart on his sleeve, like warrior energy, heart centered, and very authentic, right? Because it's like all that Leo energy. Leo energy doesn't want to fake anything because again, the
Yeah.
heart
I know.
cannot
The
fake
heart
things, right?
speaks.
The
Yeah,
head can.
absolutely.
The heart speaks, and the Leo has to listen. So yeah, so the rising, so Sun, Moon, rising, Mercury, Mars, Venus are your personal six planets that make up a lot of your day to day, what motivates you, obstacles, opportunities, and those six can give you a lot of understanding of what kind of self care do you need, what kind of tools are going to be helpful for you. Really, like the day-to-day journey of your life is very
Right.
dictated by those six.
Yeah, that's okay. Those would be considered the inner planets themselves, or is that the ones closest that's affecting us? Okay. Okay. So then we have outer
Yeah.
planets
So
also. Yeah, I mean,
yes. So those inner planets, like just it says, that they're the ones closer. We learn
okay.
about this, right, in science class, and they're closer to us. So therefore they affect us more, right? Like because they're closer. And then we start to go into the outer planets. And the outer planets, they move much slower. So they take longer to switch signs. And these help us understand, um, you know, these little like cohorts or little classes of people we join Earth with. So your Jupiter sign changes every year, and Jupiter really affects for a year where the collective, where we're meant to expand our wisdom path, our path of biggest blessings and abundance. So your Jupiter is in Gemini, and that's all about, Gemini is the communicator, the podcaster, the writer,
Right.
and Gemini is also gets a lot of strength from questioning things. In my book, I talk about it. It's the but why, the who says. Like
Yes.
Gemini wants to turn things on its head and be really curious. And so a lot of your wisdom and your expansion and your abundance in this lifetime will come from plugging into that Jupiter energy. And you actually just finished your Jupiter return in like June 2024 to June 2026. And that sets you on a new 12-year cycle. And we kind of like charge up our Jupiter sign every 12 years. And we maybe have a new idea or a vision, or again, a new path, a new adventure is laid out before us. So there's Jupiter. And then I'll try and move these a little quickly. We have the North Node, which is my favorite thing to work with in someone's chart. It's an esoteric point. Its roots are in Vedic astrology. And your North Node is really about like your highest soul's purpose. Like, why did we do I think this is what as a child I was always looking to find out, like why are we here? Right?
Right. Right.
like,
Right.
like I feel like we're here for something bigger than maybe what I was seeing around me, right? And I always felt like I was born with this big purpose, but I didn't really know the outlet
Yeah.
of how to make it happen. And your North Node can connect you to your work, of course, isn't that purpose? But it's even beyond your work. It's about how are you meant to show up as a human? How are you meant to show up in relationships, in your self-growth? And it's kind of like a compass. Like every time that we can follow our North Node, we can usually step into more of that cosmic zone life. And your North Node is in Gemini also, which is interesting. Mine is too. And so, for both of us, we're here to question things, to turn things on their head. The North Node Gemini is a writer, speaker, communicator, and Gemini, very interesting, is meant to take the opposite sign, Sagittarius, big life philosophies, belief systems, things that might be erudite or esoteric, wisdom studies, and we're meant to just make them really accessible and really down to earth and really like easy to understand for people. It's like kind of removing gatekeeping
Yeah.
from the land of higher truth, right? So again, like you're doing that so beautifully. And then we go out like Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. I don't know if you want me to get, I can absolutely get into all those. I just
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know
yeah.
if you want me to. But yeah, any questions or reflections on,
Yeah, no,
on so far what I've shared?
yeah, no, it's interesting because many of the things you speak of, in hearing a person like yourself go through the different planets and to hear the similarities or the associations that I can have. A lot of times people look for only the positive qualities that a person says within themselves. Oh, that's me, but that's not me, or that's me, or that's not me. It becomes almost like an ego-based analysis where people don't want to hear, but it's those difficult parts of
Yeah,
ourselves that we need to be prepared for that help us, I guess, as you say, help us on our calling. And before,
absolutely.
yeah, I just wanted to also
And
point out, yeah, no, in terms of Gemini, as you mentioned, yourself or myself or anybody else with that planetary action, I guess for myself, religion would have been something, if it was in my way, would have been something that
mm-hmm.
I wanted to take out of my way. But now that I didn't
Yes.
have it in my way, I can naturally fall upon it to then either fall in love with different something else, but not be forced into something. And I didn't like structure where other people created the structure for me and made the rules for me.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and so you're in relationships with people, and many times you
Yes.
clash with what you are,
Yeah.
and especially the Leo, for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
My Leo
Yes.
would have the
Yes.
opportunity to, because of my understanding of other people and your assessment of what you said, if you're not in the company of a reciprocal individual or individuals, then you can't really shine your light sometimes because you can shine your light and you need to shine your light, but sometimes it could sometimes blind others if they're not prepared for who you are or not accepting.
Yeah.
Would you say that?
Absolutely. I think a lot of astrology to me, again, wisdom of the stars, helping me understand the light within myself and how to hold that more and how to learn discernment of who are the people, the projects that magnify and reflect my light back to me versus draining my light, versus draining my energy. Because for the first 33 years of my life, I just equated, you know, um, what love is, what, helping people is just giving all of my energy away, right?
Right, right.
And that left me very, very drained, very disoriented. And I think that, in astrology, I really learned to just go with these, like, especially working with the moon, really setting intentions and working clearly and paying attention to my inner energy. And that is a big thing with your moon sign and working with like the new moon, the full moon is realizing like, oh, like this doesn't actually really feel good in my moon. Why am I doing this thing? Why am I giving so much of myself? And actually, let me learn some healthier boundaries again, so I can hold more of my light of my sun sign. And the sun and moon in your chart really work together in a really beautiful way to show up really clear and then to find that like reflected back through your relationships. And I do also want to share, I'm a very positive person. I try to be very empowering, but I am also, through and through a big sister, a tough love teacher, because I do believe that like, we have to have people who lovingly and tenderly call us out on our BS, but So I have to call myself out so we can grow.
Yeah.
And in the book, I do talk about for every sign, so every part of your chart, there's, if you think about astrology and the zodiac signs, we talk about Leo or Virgo or Gemini. I want you to imagine there's no good or bad sign. When people make fun of a sign or mean, that's just not, that's silly. That's like fast food, astrology. It's not really, it doesn't have any depth or meaning to it. I want you to think about every sign is like an octave, like a scale, right? Like a xylophone. And there's high octaves and there's low octaves. There's shadow and there's light within every sign. And it's really up to us, especially where our personal planets are, Sun, Moon, Mercury, right? Our rising, our Venus. It's really up to us to understand and have awareness of where we can tip into the shadow. Because all of our superpowers, all of our strengths in our chart, if they're left unchecked, can also become, the tools of our own demise or downfall, or where
Right.
we can pull ourselves in a downward spiral instead of going up in a healthy, happy spiral of growth. And just, as an example, like I'm a Virgo. So Virgo is, the maiden who wants to help, who has the harvest is full from the summer and she wants to work hard and give her overflow to other people. But Virgo is very attention, ruling by Mercury. So a crazy eye for detail, like an editor. And so all of this are these are some of my superpowers. I love to help people. It comes really naturally to me to be of service. I also have a crazy eye for detail. I love details. I love fine tuning things, making things better, doing things really thoughtfully. But these things, when they're left unchecked, and I talk about this in every chapter of like when to use this energy, but knowing when to shelve it, I call it. Like, when do we pull it back a little bit? Virgo energy can give so much, as I did, even when people aren't even asking for it, giving help, offering advice, stepping out of my lane, crossing my own boundaries so much to the point where I had become in life like bitter. I'd become a little disenchanted. I'd become kind of drained because I was giving too much and
Right.
no one, again, was even asking for it. So then it left me in a place of feeling maybe passive aggressive or feeling kind of resentful and saying yes to things when I didn't really want to do them. And
Right.
that's not showing up with clear aligned energy. And similar, that eye for detail left unchecked made my brain go crazy because my to-do list never end. I could always see how something could be better, 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 better. Or sometimes I wouldn't even start something because I was already 20,000 steps ahead. And I talk about this in the book, right? So for me, as a sun sign in Virgo, it was very important to know the octave. And I didn't like figure it out. I still can go up and down that octave even in a day's time, right?
Right.
I can feel myself, but I have the awareness. I feel, ooh, Maddie, you're tipping into that shadow, Virgo. Come back in, right? What is this showing you? What is this teaching you? Are you overextending? Are you saying yes when you don't want to, right? Are you having too many eyes for details on stuff that doesn't really help or make any sense? Or are you turning that eye for detail into self-criticism of yourself? So I just want to point out that every sign has a shadow and a light energy, and it's really up to us to understand what that looks and feels like.
Yeah, that sounds almost like a musician who has their instrument tuned. And regarding to the work you do, you're helping a person find the middle ground between their high aspect and their low aspect of themselves so that they can be more balanced.
Mm,
And it's interesting for me because I look at that myself. When you're a child as a Leo, you want everybody to pay attention to you. You become so egocentric, and now
yeah.
you face people who put you in their place, with words and other types of
Yes.
actions, and then you recognize, wait a minute, it's not all about me. And I guess it's taming the flame within oneself, and relate as it relates to myself. Um,
Yes, exactly. And that is really important. Like that exactly is it. And like not that anything is wrong, especially when we're a child. Like we have just if we need something, we need something. And sometimes we don't get it. But then our shadow can kind of do things to overcompensate or being an avoidance around these energies. And again, that's why I love astrology is it gives us the tools to reparent ourselves, to go and figure out what we need, and to also sometimes, especially when it comes to our moon or our Venus sign, actually say like I do need certain things and I don't want to apologize for them,
Right, right.
but maybe it's up to me to give that to myself first, right? But I don't because I know for me, I just my Pisces moon, for instance, loves creative time, loves quiet time,
Right.
loves time to be mystical and playful. And like I said earlier, when I was in my 20s, I thought that was silly. I didn't really take that seriously. And so I cut that part of myself off, but I was cutting off so much of my
Yeah,
power,
yeah.
right? So learning that, oh, I do need those things and I don't have to say they're silly, but it is up to me to put myself, to do that for myself, right?
Yeah, I want to touch upon your book in just in a second. I have one more thought. Maybe you can touch upon it. I've encountered my past lives and information on different aspects of things I've
Mm-hmm.
experienced and things that I've experienced in this life itself that relate to that, and had readings and other
Mm.
people come into my life who've mentioned that, and I felt it. So sometimes what I've heard is that we're actually born in the sign of the sign that we're supposed to be working on in this lifetime. So, for example, if you weren't seen in one life, maybe this is the
Yes,
lifetime to be seen. Or when you were too boisterous, maybe this is the time to be more reflective. Would you agree to have any?
absolutely. I think we can learn a lot about our past life. Again, I was always someone who loved past life work or who'd feel when I this is weird. When I was like 4 years old, I literally told my parents something about being in a harem in a past life. And they were like, where did you learn that word? What are you talking about?
Oh,
Because I
wow.
would have these dreams. I had dreams being almost like Joan of Arc energy, like in a suit from a burning building on a horse. But before I had seen anything like this in a movie or anything. So I've always felt really connected to past lives. But I also sometimes my more skeptical Virgo brain, my inner New Yorker is like, well, how do you know? What does this all mean, right? Like how,
Right, right, right.
someone's maybe just making this up. Maybe I'm making this up. Maybe it's my imagination, even though I didn't really think that. And one of the things I do with people is I will read their past lives through their birth chart. And sometimes it's a little bit of your past life within this life, but it is usually connected to one of the most important or most recent past lives you had and the karma that you're here to, like you said, correct or to bring things into balance. And if anyone listening at home wants to do this for themselves, one of the biggest, like, there's so much to read in the chart, but to make it really simple with one tip is looking at that south node. So we talked about your north node is your compass. That's like what you're stretching into in this life. That's what you're like, ooh, like this is an exciting new frontier. And your south node is what you did in a past life and maybe where the karma or where you went too far in that energy and now kind of like unrolling a poster we're trying to stretch into the north node, but that south node might kind of keep creeping up. And it's not that we're here to let go of all the south node principles, traits, values, but we're here to live in them like in a way that's a healthy relationship to it. And then kind of take that leap into the unknown frontier of the north node. So your south node is in Sag in the fourth house. So yeah, like I don't know, being really worldly and traveling and maybe having a home life that felt really international, or maybe you, in a past life you moved a lot. Definitely a philosopher, definitely some kind of a mystic or
Yeah.
seer. Maybe that was even in your family line. But it might have been, and I only say this because I have the same thing in my chart, so I'm very familiar with it. There might have been like a little bit of a, I don't want to call it an abuse of power, but a little bit of like in past lives, maybe you were Sagittarius rules church, rules religion, rules universities, rules these kind of institutions where it can be more about power than
Right,
about
right.
sharing wisdom. And so you and I both have this in our chart. And someone told me one time that like you were in an ivory tower, you did all of the university studies, all of this, and you thought you were very like a little bit like better than people
Right, right, right. Wow.
because you had access to this information. And now in this lifetime, you're just here to really be a very down to earth person who's sharing this information with anyone that will listen, right? Instead of being like, you have to go through this path or go to this school or get this certification or sit with this type of person. And I knew that's only one quick
Yeah,
takeaway
yeah,
of it.
yeah, yeah.
But when you mentioned religion before, I was like, oh, that's very connected to Sagittarius. When you have a Sagittarius South node, you usually were karmic composting something around religion is definitely one of the themes.
What's interesting is that now in this life, doing healing work and going up a different road, as we mentioned before, it's a complete opposite spectrum of being open towards what lies beyond the surface as opposed to something that's structured. But nonetheless, that powerful feeling
Mm,
of being in a power place, I've had that experience. Actually, World War II, and I've, yeah, World War II past life. So,
yes, that
yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, I was a doctor in the concentration camps. In fact, for me, I lived in Germany in 1987, and I spoke fluently within 5 months. I married a German woman. Felt like
Wow.
I was home. That's 1987. Skip to year
Wow.
2010. I'm looking at the vents in my office building, and I'm getting a panic attack from the vents where the heat's coming out.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so
Oh
I
my God.
I wound up
Oh, yeah.
seeing a healer, and the healer at that point I didn't wasn't into any healing modalities other than acupuncture. And then he said to me, you were in Germany in a past life. I said, what do you mean? I had no clue what past lives at that point were. And then, to make a
Mm,
long story short, I studied a little bit about the Akashic records, which is what I do now. And then I wound up having a
hmm
reading, and the woman said, you had a past life in Germany as a doctor in the concentration camps, where you were in charge and a sense of
mm,
power. And in this life, and then it went on further. I did readings for people, healing work, and the woman said, "I remember you from." I said, "Where?" From. She said, "You were a doctor in the concentration camps." I said, "Really?" I said. And then I was like, phew,
wow.
felt the guilt come over me, and like whatever that feeling of like, yeah, it was exactly that feeling of being in charge, but also feeling a tremendous amount of guilt. And I think,
Yes. Yes. And just like we're saying before, it's like, then you understand the feeling
yeah,
and you externalize it and you can give words to it, then you can do something, you can metabolize it, you can turn that into new energy, you can do something with that, right? So, okay, what did I learn from that? What am I
right,
not to do? And that also makes sense because your Taurus moon, they say your moon sign can be literally a job you had in your past life, and Taurus is very connected to the physical, body, physical health. And so for you, now in this lifetime, like kind of karma course correcting of
right,
like teaching people to be more open, right? More compassionate. And not that you really wanted to do that. Like obviously if that was a
right,
past life,
right, right,
you could have been there for many reasons. But even like I would even bring it into Taurus moon it rules the throat too, and you have all this Leo energy. And I called you a warrior before,
right.
and that is a little bit too in this lifetime. Is maybe it wasn't safe to in that lifetime, but in this lifetime you can speak up, stand out. Right? Leo rules the spine and the heart. And Leo wants us to be like, not like this in our truth, but
Right.
like heart open, spine up, crown on, and like, no, like this is something that I am seeing that I do not agree with. And a lot of that is courage, right? The French word to live from the heart is a very Leo, lion-hearted word. So I'm just feeling like for you, you were given all this Leo energy in this life to be like, never again, right? Like there's something I'm
Yes,
gonna
yes, yes.
really use all of that strength to speak up in a way maybe I wasn't able to. So that's very fascinating. Thank you for sharing that with me.
You're welcome. Yeah. You wrote a book, The Cosmic Zone, which we didn't give the
Yes.
title of the book. How do we,
Oh,
what was the,
yes.
what was the motivation and how long did it take you and what's the main information that's in the book and how is it helpful for others?
Yeah. So the book in the Cosmic Zone um, kind of happened by accident. I was helping people doing mentoring, coaching work of how to understand, their self-care based on their birth chart. And I also, years ago, through the astrology, was able to see through some of my elders and teachers that we were on the cusp of entering a new stage in humanity that is completely unprecedented. And it was going to start, there's certain checkpoints with it. It's like 2014, 2012, which it already passed when I was studying this. And then it was like 2020, it was gonna be a big mark. And then 2024, 2025, 2026, 2032, these like huge um, shifts were gonna happen in humanity. And I really started thinking about, I really want to empower the leaders of tomorrow, these people who are going to have different roles in the revolution, who are looking at the status quo, the way things have been done. And these are the people who have always felt like the outcasts, right? Like how I felt, a little mystical, a little like a witchy weirdo, a little bit too sensitive, whatever it is. How do I empower them to feel comfortable in everything from their message, their voice, to feeling visible, to trusting their intuition, to expanding with ease, to understanding their energy? Like, and I was an entrepreneur, so a lot of how I understood impact and in a spiritual journey and helping our collective was through business. So I was working with a lot of business people, and it kind of shifted into working with a lot of creatives and storytellers, um, and I so I put together this process where I was like, why don't we just look at your chart? Not just everyone wants to know my sun, my moon, my Mercury, but the key of understanding yourself, first of all, is that you are whole.
Right.
You carry all 12 signs of the zodiac within your chart. No one is missing a zodiac sign. It's just about how it wants to express in this lifetime. And, we didn't get into it, but when you look at your birth chart, it looks like a pizza pie, and you have 12 houses, and some of them are empty, some of them are full, but every house correlates to a part of your life and a part of your soul. And when we understand that and bring all that online, we can realize that we have everything we need within us, and we can meet moments with way much more awareness. And even if your chart is empty in that part, it's still affected by the astrological weather, right? Like I don't have any Taurus in my chart, but as we go into the Taurus full moon, it's going to activate my 11th house of community, of technology, of my inner visionary energy. So it's really important for me to understand what that means, right? And so I started teaching people this, and I was helping them to do it more about living in their purpose, or more about building out their business or their offerings, or just leading with more of this a different, more conscious way of being. And then we kind of discovered that when we did this, magic was happening. And one of the things that I always felt as a child was that magic was so real. I've always felt that. I'm like, no, if
Right.
you are open to it, and you are if you are again open to trusting it and seeing how it's already happening, but just turn towards it a little bit, it will turn to meet you, and you can have a lot of fun in life, and you can create a lot of joy and fulfillment and ease. And so we started calling it like being in the cosmic zone, because things would happen. Again, we're working on someone's business leadership, but their doors are open, doors are closing, but then bigger doors are opening. They're having chance, meetups and synchronicities and signs that are guiding them to eventually meeting their life partners. They're having like this sense of like, oh my God, my guides are talking to me, and life is like whimsical and
Yeah.
fun again. And it started going well beyond just, working in their purpose, but it also helped them show up in their purpose with more life force. So I really started thinking about this concept. And I have been approached years ago in 2020 to write a book proposal. And it was one of those hard moments in life where I had to say no. I went through the process, and it was so forced. Hey, baby. It was so forced that it felt like a struggle. It felt really like energetically rough to me. And I'm a big believer in like not forcing, trusting flow, trusting your timing. And my timing in my birth chart, it wasn't aligned with that. I had other things to do. And one of them was I started a podcast instead. So I said to myself, I made a promise. I'm like, when you're ready to write this book, it's going to just flow through you. Like, just trust when the book is ready, it'll come. And I want to feel in the process of writing the book how I want people to feel when they read it. Like, I'm a big believer in energy transmissions. So why do I want to write a book when
Right.
I'm stressed, when I'm feeling crunchy, when I'm feeling clenched the whole time.
Right.
I want to write a book that feels fun, that feels freeing, right? So, understanding the key to all 12 zodiac signs in someone's chart and less about the technicalities of astrology, trines and aspects. That stuff is cool. But I just want to remind people, even if they have no astrological information or wisdom or, prerequisites of coming in,
Right.
that they can still tap into just the universal truth that you have everything you need within you. You just might need a guidebook, you might need a little permission slip, you might need a little like pep talk. And then in every chapter, there's really practical magic. There's like, okay, great. This is the Leo key. Here's what it is. Here's when to shelve it. Here's when to, go deeper with it. But also, I talk about client case studies. Like, this is what happened when one of my client opened up their Leo energy. I talk about my personal journey with Leo. And then I share for every single sign. And this might be my favorite part because, again, I love actionable steps. I share a mindset practice, an embodiment practice, and a spiritual practice, like a ritual. So that way, even if you don't totally understand how to access that energy, you can do one of those things,
Right.
right? Like you can go out and do, like for Aries, for Taurus energy, I talk about like being in nature and go like sit in nature and talk to nature. And that is going to help you understand like how Taurus energy wants to move through you, breathe through you. And I guess my like wrapping all this up, I really didn't really know when I was writing it. I was like, this is a little different than I think people are going to expect because it's an astrology book, but it's not. And I really didn't want to write that book that I've seen so many people pick up. I have astrology books all over my house, and people pick them up and someone has no access to it, understanding, they'll say, "Oh, Taurus moon," or like, Pisces moon. And they'll read in the book and it'll say, "You're flaky, you're this, you're that." And I see them get a little like crestfallen. They're like, "Oh." And my sister picked up a book and it was like her Venus sign. And it was like, "It's really hard for you to find love." And she's like, "Oh," and it feels like that to me is when astrology can feel like a curse, like not like a blessing. And so I was like, I want to write an astrology book that doesn't seek to define you,
Right. Right.
but rather an astrology book that seeks to align you.
Oh, that's
Great.
nice.
I have this energy within me. Can I move with it? Can I see how it wants to move with me? Can I see why each thing is called a key? Can I see what it wants to unlock? Like something in me that was previously blocked, what happens when I put that awareness in there. So that's the story behind the book.
And if somebody was if somebody's interested in contacting you and getting a reading or seeking your information, where could they reach you?
Yeah, definitely. I have a website for my brand. It's called thecosmicrx.com. Right now I'm not taking a lot of personal readings because I have two under two doing the book promotion. But in 2026, I'll be taking a few of like my mentees on like a 6 month container. But I also am really committed to what I like to say, democratizing magic, making the spiritual world accessible and fun. So on my website, we have free blog posts, we have a free newsletter that goes out every Monday. We have a free podcast, just a lot of resources for people if they want to kind of open up to this world
Yeah.
in a way that I hope kind of meets them where they're at.
Yeah, there's other subjects like galactic beings and other stuff that I'm connected to, but that's for another time. In terms of unless,
Yeah, I know. I have so I can. I know that's a second talk. Let's
y-
definitely have a second
yeah,
chat about
yeah,
that.
yeah. And on that note, if you could leave the audience with like a message based upon the work you're doing, what they should, how
Mhm.
they can relate to the work, and what it could do for them, or however you.
Mm. What's coming through is, again, no matter when this recording comes out, wherever someone is listening to this, it is undeniable that there's a lot happening out in the world, and it can feel really overwhelming, and it can feel like a lot. But after reading for thousands of people and interacting with tens of thousands of people, through their birth chart, through connecting to their guides, the message that comes through that is so true to me, I feel it in my blood, in my bones, is that you listening to this right now, you were born on purpose, with purpose for this exact moment in history. And it's just now time to remember that, to bring that back in and remember why. And I'm here to help you do it if you want to.
Yeah, that's very inspiring and yeah, beautiful words because it's on point with where we're at and where we're headed, and I guess the path of finding out who we are. And I think your insight will help people do that. So I want to thank you for joining me today and giving me the opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you, Adam. This was lovely.